The Premier League is exciting. And no, we aren't just talking about the full 90 minutes of high-octane football. We're talking about the abandoned ones. You know, the ones that begin and officials have to end halfway or even a few minutes before the end of the game. The Premier League has had its fair share of cancelled matches. Health problems, weather, and electrical problems are the reasons that have made Premier League officials cancel games. Still, some of these reasons aren't as innocent, as they seem to have served as cover for a dark event, and that event will shock you. This is every abandoned Premier League match ever. Bournemouth vs Luton Town, December 16th, 2023. Speaking of shocks, let's talk about what an ICD is. An ICD is a small battery-powered piece of equipment expertly placed in the heart to detect and stop irregular heartbeats. The device achieves this by delivering electric shocks to the heart, which restores regular heartbeats. Christian Eriksen, Daley Blind, and now Luton Town's Tom Lockyer all have heart conditions requiring ICDs. So what's this talk about ICD? And what's it got to do with abandoned Premier League matches? Let's rewind things a bit. In May 2023, Tom Lockyer got stretchered off the pitch during Luton Town's Championship playoff final against Coventry City after falling to the ground 12 minutes into the game. Oh, it looks like we rewound it a bit too much into the past, but stay with us. After the match, Lockyer revealed he had an atrial flutter and played the condition down, saying it was probably the least severe heart condition you could have. Lockyer went to have surgery to correct the condition, and the doctors gave him the go-ahead to participate in the Premier League. Lockyer has been participating in the Premier League, captaining his side and having an average match rating of 7.02, according to SofaScore. Maybe Lockyer would have an even greater rating if he hadn't collapsed in Luton Town's match against Bournemouth on December 16th, 2023. Lockyer went down at Bournemouth's Vitality Stadium in the 59th minute when the scores were 1-1. Philip Billing, who noticed the situation, ran to help the player before Bournemouth medics attended to him. The stadium went cold, and it wasn't the winter. The referee asked the players to return to the dressing room as Luton Town's captain continued to receive treatment. Eventually, when Lockyer responded to treatment from the Bournemouth medics, he got carried off the pitch, with fans of both teams giving him a standing ovation. The player received further treatment in the stadium before he was eventually taken to the hospital. After around 30 minutes of players not knowing what to expect, the match was announced as abandoned. Players and a visibly emotional Luton Town coach, Rob Edwards, in tears, walked around the pitch clapping in appreciation of the fans. At the hospital, Lockyer was fitted with an ICD and discharged 5 days later. The player continues his rehabilitation process, with Luton Town being quiet on whether the player would return to the pitch. While Lockyer's health problems would not be the first of their kind since the Premier League era, its occurrence has fans and experts alike asking the same thing. Are players playing too much? The last time a player's health challenge caused a match to stop was in 2012, when Fabrice Muamba collapsed during the match between Bolton Wanderers and Tottenham Hotspur. But that was an FA Cup game, so we can't dwell on it in this video. So let's move on to another period where a Premier League match had to be abandoned. And yes, it was also during December. And if you'd like to watch more content like this, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more. Watford vs Wigan Athletic, December 30th, 2006. In the Premier League, there has got to be something about December, draws and match cancellations. This time, it's Watford vs Wigan Athletic at Watford Stadium, Vicarage Road. The only thing that was raging during the match between those two teams was the rain. The two teams had scored against each other, but as the match progressed, things became messy. And no, we aren't talking about the players. With the rain continuing to pour, the referee stopped the players from playing as the pitch became so waterlogged that the players couldn't play. After 10 minutes, the referee decided the match had to be abandoned. The FA rescheduled the match to February 21st, 2007, but it had to begin all over. This meant that the goal scorers in the game, Emil Heskey, who scored for Wigan, and Tamas Priskin for Watford, had their goals erased with the abandoned match. Ouch. The two players must have been frustrated, as Priskin ended the season with 2 goals, and Heskey with 8 goals. Not really an impressive return for the two strikers. In the rescheduled match, the two teams eventually drew 1-1. Curious, isn't it? But we can assure you that the match wasn't fixed. There is no chance of such happening in the Premier League. Or is there? You would be surprised with the answer as you continue with this video. Sunderland vs Fulham, April 8, 2006. Rain is not the only weather-based reason that would lead to a Premier League match being abandoned. Before the rain that forced Wigan and Watford to abandon their game in December, snow that was described as blocks of ice had caused Fulham and Sunderland to leave theirs back in April. Fulham scored against Sunderland within the first 21 minutes, making the score 1-0 until heavy snow caused the pitch of Sunderland's Stadium of Light to become waterlogged and unplayable. The two teams replayed the match from minute 0 in May 2006, with Sunderland eventually winning the fixture 2-1. That has got to sting. Sorry Fulham. Derby County vs Wimbledon, August 13, 1997. Remember what we said about match fixing not being in the Premier League earlier? Well, let's see about this. In 1997, Derby County was raring to go. The team was hyped to have their maiden home league match at Pride Park Stadium. Everything was going fine, and Derby County's hype of playing in their home stadium was yielding great results. The team was leading Wimbledon 2-1 until, suddenly, the lights went out, and the stadium was left in darkness at the 56th minute of the match. No, we aren't kidding. You're probably thinking it's just the floodlights. Surely there are people who could fix it easily. Not quite. No one could figure out what was wrong, and the referee had to declare the match abandoned. Derby County fans and the team must have been disappointed alike. No one thought anything of the event, and the conclusion was that it was just a problem a new stadium would face. When Derby and Wimbledon replayed the match, they drew the game 1-1. At the time, officials would probably have thought it was a one-off event. Well, West Ham United vs Crystal Palace, November 3rd, 1997. West Ham United and Crystal Palace were having a typical London derby. The match was competitive, with Crystal Palace leading 2-1 from a Neil Shipperley brace until the 65th minute, when Frank Lampard equalised in a signature thunderous shot. And just as Lampard's shot struck the net, poof went the lights, leaving the stadium in darkness. And no, Lampard's shot didn't take the lights out. His shots were powerful, but not that powerful. It was something else that caused it, or you could say, someone else. Upton Park wasn't a new ground. It was tested and trusted and had veteran electricians who swung into action to bring the lights back up. And they did, easily. However, the lights only came on briefly before they went out again, and this time, the electricians couldn't get them to come on. So, the referee had no other choice than to call for suspension of the match. Monday, December 22nd, 1997, Wimbledon vs Arsenal. It looks like Wimbledon had beef with floodlights in 1997. During the team's match against Arsenal in December 1997, the floodlights went off for a few seconds into the second half when the scores were 0-0. The referee had to call off the match. Now, this was unusual. It was the third time in 5 months that team would abandon a match due to electrical issues. Something was wrong, but the problem was finding out what exactly was wrong. The reason for the flickering. The police were suspicious, and their suspicions were confirmed when the perpetrators tried to repeat the same thing in the Charlton Athletic and Liverpool match. Yun Liu, a Hong Kong native with a British passport and a long-time resident of London, and Eng Hua Lim and Chi Koo Ong, both from Malaysia, ran a betting syndicate. They found a way to make money off gamblers by making sure the matches didn't run into complete 90 minutes, as long as they had results that favoured them. How did this work? Unlike in the UK, where bets on football matches that end abruptly get voided and cancelled, in East Asia, those bets are regarded as complete as long as the second half has started. The men took advantage of the situation and invested in a remote-controlled circuit breaker that could automatically turn off the floodlights at the touch of a button. The men could only achieve their aim through insiders. It was one of the men who was supposed to do an inside job for them in the Charlton Athletic and Liverpool game that tipped off the police. However, authorities could only prove their involvement in the West Ham United vs Crystal Palace and Wimbledon vs Arsenal matches. There wasn't evidence that they were involved in the Derby County vs Wimbledon game, which was the match where the floodlight issues began. Suspicious? What do you think? It looks like even the Premier League isn't safe from match fixing. But those were the earliest days of the Premier League, and it didn't even go on for so long before authorities nabbed the perpetrators. The Premier League is action-packed even when matches are cancelled. While some cancellations are innocent and unavoidable, others, as you have seen, are malicious and used to serve the purposes of selfish individuals. Although Tom Lockyer's heart attack scare is the latest event to cause a match suspension in the Premier League, match suspensions have become a thing of the past for the most part. With what happened to Tom Lockyer, do you think players are playing too much, or the schedules are just fine? Let us know what you think in the comments. Like this video and subscribe to our channel for more.